June 17, 2013. The Indian Ocean, about 200 miles off the coast of Yemen. Early morning, the middle of monsoon season, the swell running around 5.5 meters, big, but nothing a modern ship should not be able to handle. A container ship named the MOL Comfort is sailing from Singapore toward the ports of Europe, along one of the busiest trade routes on the planet. She is 316 meters long. She is 5 years old. She was built by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in Nagasaki, Japan, one of the finest shipyards on Earth. On board that morning, 4,382 containers, thousands of tons of heavy fuel oil, and a crew of 26. Nothing about this is unusual. This exact ship has made this exact crossing many times. The weather is rough, but it is ordinary rough. There is no hurricane on the chart, no warning. And that is precisely what makes what happens next so frightening. During their watch, the crew begins to notice something wrong. Not an alarm, not a light on a panel, a feeling. Something you sense through the soles of your feet before you can put words to it. A slow, deep flexing running the length of the ship, as if the whole vessel has started to breathe. A steel hull 3 football fields long is arching in the middle. One long wave has lifted the center of the ship, while the bow and stern hang unsupported in the troughs on either side, and the entire structure is bending like a plank held at both ends. Engineers have a name for this. They call it hogging. Every ship hogs a little as it moves through waves. It is built to bend rather than snap. But this is more than a little. Then comes the sound. From deep inside the hull, from the 6th cargo hold, the tearing of metal. A low, grinding shriek that no one who hears it will ever forget. At 8:30 in the morning, the captain sends the distress signal. Within the hour comes the order every captain dreads: abandon ship. 26 people climb into the lifeboats and pull away from the vessel that minutes ago felt like the safest place in the ocean. By the time the last boat is clear, the MOL Comfort has already split cleanly into 2 pieces. A 316-meter ship folded apart in the middle like a snapped pencil, the 2 halves rising and falling separately on the same swell. 10 days later, the stern half sinks into water 4 kilometers deep. The bow half burns and goes down in July. All 26 crew survive. The cargo, thousands of containers and everything inside them, is gone. Here is the part that should stop you cold. The MOL Comfort was not old. She was not poorly built. She had passed her inspections, and by today's standards, she was not even a large ship. She was, if anything, medium-sized. Today, the ships crossing our oceans are nearly 100 meters longer than the Titanic. The 5 largest container ships on the planet each carry more than 24,000 containers on a single hull. A floating city of steel that moves itself from one continent to another. We are going to go through all 5, from 5th place to 1st, and look at exactly how big a moving object human beings have learned to build. But the most important thing in this video happens at the end. Because there is a state of the sea. Not a storm, just moderate wind and ordinary waves, with every instrument on the bridge reading normal, in which a ship this size can roll onto its side by itself. This is the thing the captains of these giants fear more than any hurricane. And it has an exact scientific name. Watch to the end. That is where the answer is. First, a real sense of scale, because the numbers mean nothing until you can stand next to them. A modern mega container ship is just under 400 meters long. Stand one on its end, and it would be taller than the Empire State Building. Lay it flat, and it stretches 4 football fields end to end. It is about 61 meters wide. 24 lanes of highway side by side. Fully loaded, it can weigh well over 200,000 tons, moving across the ocean at the speed of a car on a city street. Now the containers. A standard box is about 2.5 meters tall. On these ships, they are stacked more than 20 high, around 8 in the holds, and up to a dozen more above deck out in the open air. Just 8 boxes stacked one on top of another already reach the height of a 9-story building. And the ship carries thousands of stacks, packed wall to wall, a solid landscape of steel in every color, stretching away until the far end disappears into the horizon. Driving all of it is a single 2-stroke diesel engine roughly the size of a 3-story house. You can walk around, producing 80 to 90,000 horsepower, the power of about 1,000 family cars, all flooring the accelerator at once. It feeds one bronze propeller more than 9 meters across, taller than a 3-story building, turning only about 90 times a minute to push 250,000 tons through the sea at around 40 kilometers an hour. And here is the detail that surprises everyone. A ship this size, a machine the size of a small town, carrying the contents of an entire retail economy, is run by a crew of only about 20 to 25 people. 20-odd human beings on a floating steel island, alone in the middle of an ocean, for weeks. Keep that number in mind. It matters at the end. One last thing before the countdown, because it explains everything. It is easy to assume a ship this huge must be perfectly rigid. It is the opposite. A hull nearly 400 meters long is flexible. It has to be. If it were perfectly stiff, the waves would tear it apart. So it is engineered to bend and twist slightly, the way a skyscraper is built to sway in the wind instead of cracking. That flexibility is what keeps it alive. But it is also the door through which the danger walks in. Number 5. We start at the entrance to the top tier, a class of ships carrying around 23,800 to 24 ENS containers each, giants like the CMA CGM and OOCL vessels from the great Chinese yards. Sit with that number. 24,000 containers is roughly the population of a small town. Imagine every person in a town of 24,000 each carrying one full shipping container onto a single ship. That is the cargo. That is one voyage. And notice these ships measure right around 399 meters, not 400, deliberately just under. We will come back to why, because that missing meter is not there by accident. Number 4. The Ever Alot, delivered in 2022 by the Hudong Zhonghua shipyard in Shanghai. The largest container ship China had ever built at the time, carrying 24,004 containers. And here is the detail engineers love. The Ever Alot measures 399 meters and 99 centimeters, exactly 1 centimeter less than 400. On a ship the length of 4 football fields, the architects stopped 1 single centimeter short of a round number, and that centimeter is not modesty. It is a wall. 400 meters is a threshold drawn by the ports, not the ship. The length of the berths, the reaches of the cranes, the depth of the dredged channels, the turning basins where tugboats swing these vessels in tight water. A huge part of the world's port infrastructure assumes a ship will not exceed 400 meters, so designers build right up to the wall and stop 1 centimeter short. The Ever Alot is as large as the planet's harbors will physically allow, and not a fingernail's width larger. Number 3. The MSC Tessa, delivered in 2023, carrying 24,116 containers. Fully loaded, she displaces more than 240,000 tons and burns dozens of tons of fuel a day. And yet, this is the paradox at the heart of these ships. Measured per container, per kilometer, a vessel like the Tessa is the single most efficient way to move goods humanity has ever invented. A single voyage carries what would otherwise need tens of thousands of trucks, an endless line stretching down the highway for hundreds of kilometers. Everything about a mega ship is a trade. We accept a machine almost too large to fully control, in exchange for the cheapest transport in history. Your standard of living quietly rests on that trade. Number 2. The OOCL family and their sisters, around 24. 188 containers, delivered in 2023. Again just shy of the 400-meter wall. And at this size, something important stops being true. The ship stops behaving like a solid object. This is the quiet secret almost no one outside the industry understands. A hull this long behaves less like a rigid beam and more like an enormously long, springy plank. As it sails, the whole vessel flexes with the passing waves, bow and stern, rising and dipping relative to the middle, thousands of times a day. It is completely normal. The steel is meant to give rather than shatter. But anything that flexes on a regular rhythm has a natural frequency, a pace it wants to move at. Push a child on a swing and they return at a certain rhythm. Strike a steel beam and it vibrates at a certain pitch. A 400-meter ship is the same. It has a slow, precise natural rhythm to how it rolls, fixed by its size and shape. And the bigger the ship, the slower and more definite that rhythm. Hold that thought. In a few minutes, it becomes the whole answer. Number 1. The MSC Irina, delivered in 2023 from the Yangjiang shipyard in China, and as of right now, the largest container ship in the world. She measures 399.9 meters long and 61.3 meters wide, and she carries 346 containers, the current world record for a single hull. Line those containers up end to end, and they would stretch for roughly 150 kilometers, a wall of steel boxes reaching from one major city to the next. Her main deck alone covers an area larger than 3.5 football fields. Stand a person at the bow and look back toward the stern, and against that horizon of stacked steel, a full-grown adult shrinks to a single dark dot. She is not a vehicle you ride. She is a place you live inside, and she is run, like all of them, by a crew you could fit inside a single city bus. That is the top of the pyramid, the largest self-propelled cargo object ever built by human hands. Which raises the obvious question. If we can build a ship this enormous, why not bigger? Why did the whole industry crowd up against 400 meters and stop? There are two ceilings holding these ships down, and both are invisible. The first we have already met, the ports. 400 meters is roughly the limit of the world's harbor infrastructure. The berths, the cranes, the channels, the locks. You could build a 500 meters long tomorrow. Making it float is not the problem. The problem is it would have almost nowhere to go. It would not fit the berths. The cranes could not reach across it. The channels could not take its draft. To build meaningfully bigger, the world would first have to rebuild hundreds of ports, at a cost beyond imagination. So for now the harbors hold the line, and every builder stops at the wall. But the second ceiling is deeper, and it belongs to physics, and it is the reason the captains fear these ships. As you make a hull longer, you are not just adding cargo space, you are changing how the whole structure responds to the sea. Remember the flexing hull, the giant springy plank with its own slow natural rhythm. The longer the ship, the slower that rhythm, and the more it starts to overlap with the rhythms of the ocean itself. Because the ocean has rhythms too. Waves come in trains, at regular intervals. The long ocean swell arrives with almost metronome precision. Normally, the ship's rhythm and the sea's rhythm are completely different, and nothing happens. But every so often, in a very particular set of conditions, they line up, they synchronize, and that is the single most dangerous thing that can happen to a vessel this size. It is exactly what was happening to the MOL Comfort as her hull began to arch and tear. That is what we go to now. This is the answer. Here is what really happens. The phenomenon has a name, parametric rolling, and it terrifies experienced captains because it breaks all of their instincts. It needs no storm. It can strike in moderate seas, under an ordinary sky, in waves coming from directly ahead or directly behind, not even from the side where you would expect a roll. The wind is unremarkable. Every instrument reads normal, and then, in a minute or two, the ship can be rolling so violently it is on the edge of going over. Here is the mechanism. Every ship has a natural roll period, the time to lean all the way to one side, back through level, over to the other side, and return. For one of these giants, that rhythm is slow, maybe half a minute for a full cycle. Parametric rolling ignites when the ship meets a wave crest roughly twice for every full roll it makes, when the wave's encounter period is close to half the ship's roll period. That 2-to-1 relationship is the trap. When a crest is under the middle of the ship, the hull sits deep and the ship is very stable. It resists leaning. A moment later, when the middle is in a trough, the hull shape changes and the ship becomes much less stable. It leans easily. On these modern hulls, with their wide flared bows and broad flat sterns built to carry the maximum number of boxes, that flicker between stable and unstable is dramatic. Twice for every roll, the ship's resistance flickers strong, weak, strong, weak, and if it lines up just right, each cycle gives the roll a tiny push at the exact instant that makes the lean bigger. It is precisely the physics of a child pumping their legs on a swing. Small inputs, perfectly timed, feeding energy into the motion. And it builds terrifyingly fast. A ship rolling gently at 2 or 3 degrees can, in a handful of wave cycles, a matter of minutes, build to a roll of 30 degrees. 40. The deck heaving over so far that walking is impossible, and everything not bolted down goes flying. Container stacks lashed for normal motion snap loose. Boxes go over the side by the hundreds. There are real cases of ships losing several hundred containers in a single event. Tens of millions of dollars gone overboard in minutes. And in the worst cases, the loads on the hull itself spike far beyond what the steel was ever meant to take. That is the door that leads to a hull tearing open. No hurricane, nothing red on any instrument, just the sea and the ship, briefly sharing the same rhythm, and the ship losing. That is the whole answer to the question from the start. Captains do not fear size itself, and they do not fear the storm they can see on the radar and steer around. What they fear is coincidence. The unlucky alignment of the wave's rhythm with the hulls, the load matching the limit of the steel on the exact wrong afternoon. And here is the cruel twist. A bigger ship is not safer from this. It is more exposed. The bigger the ship, the slower its natural rhythm, and the wider the range of ordinary sea states that can match it. The very size that makes these vessels so efficient is the same size that opens the door to the danger. And the strangest part of all, the protection is almost insultingly simple. You break the rhythm. The officer on watch, seeing the roll build, changes course by a few degrees, or changes speed by a few knots. That tiny change alters the timing at which the waves meet the ship. The 2-to-1 synchronization is broken. The energy stops pouring in. And within a cycle or two, the terrifying roll fades to nothing. The most dangerous phenomenon in the life of a mega ship, undone by turning the wheel a few degrees and easing the throttle. The danger was never brute force. It was always only timing. 400 meters, it turns out, is the length at which our oldest instincts about ships stop working. We assume bigger means stronger, more solid, harder to move. But past a certain size, a ship stops behaving like a solid object at all. It becomes a long, flexible structure with a rhythm of its own, so large that the open ocean can find that rhythm and play it like a string, with no storm required. The thing that makes it magnificent and the thing that makes it fragile are the same thing: its size. And notice when we learned this, we did not calculate parametric rolling first and build the ship safely around it. We built them bigger and bigger, chasing efficiency. And then the ocean taught us the lesson, sometimes gently, with a few hundred containers lost overboard, and sometimes brutally, with a 5-year-old hull dissolving into the Indian Ocean on an ordinary morning. The rules changed after the failure, not before it. That is how this industry has always worked. For 200 years, each new limit we find the same way. We build something a little larger than the last, send it out and wait for the sea to show us the edge we did not know was there. Then we write a new rule, and we build again. And every decade, the ships have gotten longer. Think about that the next time a package arrives at your door. Almost everything you own, the phone in your hand, the clothes you are wearing, the screen you are watching this on, once traveled inside a steel box exactly like these, stacked 20 high on a deck exactly like these, across an ocean you will never see. Between that windswept deck and your quiet bedroom lay thousands of miles of open water, a long uniform swell rolling in from the horizon, 20-some people awake on a darkened bridge, and someone's careful calculation, made before setting sail, about which rhythms of the sea to steer well clear of. That calculation is the only reason your box made it, and the ship made it, and you never had to think about any of it. If you want to see more breakdowns like this one, the largest machines humans have ever built, and the hidden reasons they should not work but do, subscribe. There are a lot more of these giants out there, and every single one of them is hiding something.